Alas, he slowly answered, still intently eyeing him. No sooner, sir. Soon enough for any Huddisman that goes a passenger. Ha, Jonah, that's another step. But he swiftly calls away the captain from that scent. I'll sail with ya, he says. The passage money, how much is that? I'll pay now, for it's particularly written, shipmates, as if it were a thing not to be overlooked in his history, that he's paid the fairest thereof ere the craft did sail, and taken with the context, this is full of meaning. Now Jonah, captain's shipmates, was one of woe's discernments, detects crime in any, but whose cupidity exposes in only in the penniless. In this world, shipmates sin that pay its way can travel freely and without a passport, whereas virtue, if a pauper, is to stop at all frontiers. So Jonah's captain prepared to test the length of Jonah's purse. Ere he judge him openly, he charges him three's the usual sum, and it's assented to. Then the captain knows that Jonah is a fugitive, but at the same time resolves to help a flight that paves its rear with gold. Yet when Jonah fairly takes out his purse, prudent suspicion still mollies the captain. He rings every coin to find a counterfeit, not a forget. Any way he mutters, and Jonah is put down for his passage. Point out my stateroom, sir, says Jonah now. I'm travel weary, I need sleep. Thou looks like it, say the captain. There is thy room. Jonah enters and will lock the door, but the lock contains no key. Hearing him foolishly fumbling there, the captain laughed loudly to himself and muttered something about the doors of convict cell being never allowed to be locked within. All dressed and dusty as he is, Jonah throws himself into his berth and finds the little stateroom sailing almost resting on his forehead. The air is close and Jonah gasps. Then, in that contracted hole sunk to beneath the ship's waterline, Jonah feels the heralding presentiment of that stifling hour, when the wall shall hold him in the smallest of his bowels wards, serrated at its axis against the side. A swinging lamp slightly oscillates in Jonah's room, and the ship, heeling over towards the wharf with the weight of the last bales, received the lamp's flame and all. The lamp alarms and frighten Jonah as lying in his berth his storm eyes roll around the place, and this thus far successful fugitive finds no refuge for his restless glance. But that contradiction in the lamp more and more appalls him. The floor, the ceiling, and the side are all awry. Oh, so my conscience hangs me, he groans, straight upward, so it burns. But the chambers of my soul are all in crookedness, like one who after a night of drunken revelry hies to his bed, still reeling but with conscience, yet bringing him, as the plugging of the Roman race horse. But so much the more strikes, he still tags into him, as one who in that miserable plight still turns and turns in giddy anguish, praying God for annihilation until the feet he passed, and at last amid the whirl of woe he feels, a deep stupor steals over him, as over the man who bleeds to death for conscience is the wound, and there's now to staunch it. So after sore wrestlings in his berth, Jonah, prodigy of ponderous misery, drags him drowning down to sleep. And now the time of tide has come. The ship casts off her cables, and from the deserted wharf the uncheered ship for Tarshish, all careening glides to sea. That ship, my friends, was the first of record smugglers. The Traven was Jonah, but the sea rebels he will not bear the wicked burden. A dreadful storm comes on. The ship is like to break, but now when the boatswain calls all hands, it's like to break, but now, calls all hands to lighten her. When boxes, bales, and jars are clattering overboard, when the wine is shrinking and the men are yelling and every plank sounds with trampling feet right over Jonah's head. In all this ringing tumult, Jonah sleeps his highest sleep. He sees no black sky, and ringing sea feels not the rattling timber, and little hears he or heeds he the far rush of the mighty whale, which even now with open mouth is cleaving the seas after him. Aye, shipmates, Jonah was gone down into the sides of the ships, a berth in the cabin, as I have taken it, and was fast asleep. But the frightened master come to him, and shrieks he in his dead ear, What meanest thou, the sleeper? Arise! Startled from his lethargy by the dreadful cry, John staggered to his feet and stumbling to the deck, grasped a shroud to look out upon the sea. But at that moment he is sprung upon by a panther billows leaping over the bulwarks. Wave after wave thus leaps into the ship, and finding no speedy bend runs roaring fore and aft, till the mariners come nigh to drowning while he afloat, and ever as the white moon shows her affrighted face from the steep gullies in the blackness overhead, I guess Jonah sees the rearing bowsprit pointing high upward, but soon beat downward against towards the tormented deep. Terrors upon terrors run shouting through his soul. In all his cringing attitudes the god fugitive is now too plainly known. The sailors mark him. More and more certain grow their suspicions of him, and at last, fully to test the truth by referring the whole matter to high heaven, they fall to casting lots to see for host cows that discover then how fiercely they move him with their questions. What is thine occupation? Whence comest thou? Thy country? What people? But mark now, my shipmate, the behavior of poor Jonah. The eager mariners but ask him who is, and where from, whereas they not only receive an answer to those questions, but likewise another answer to a question not put by them, but the unsolicited answer is forced from Jonah by the hard hand of God that is upon him. I am a Hebrew, he cries, and then I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who hath made the sea and the dry land. Fear him, O Jonah. Well, mightest thou fear the Lord God then? Straightway he goes on to make a full confession, whereupon the mariners became more and more appalled, but still are pitiful. For when Jonah not yet supplicating God for mercy, since he but too well knew the darkness of his desert, when wretched Jonah cries out to them to take him and cast him forth into the sea, for he knew that for his sake this great tempest was upon them, they mercifully turn from him and seek by other means to save the ship, but all in vain. The indignant gale howls louder. Then, with one hand raised invokingly to God, would the other they not unreluctantly lay hold of Jonah? And now, behold, Jonah taken up as an anchor and dropped into the sea, when instantly an oily calmness floats out from the east. The sea is still as Jonah carries down the gale with him, leaving smooth water behind. He goes down in the whirling heart of such masterless commotion that he scarce heeds the moment when he drops sitting into the yawning jaws awaiting him. and the whale shoots to all his ivory teeth, like so many white bolts upon his prison. Delight, top-gallant delight is to him, who acknowledge no Lord or Lord, but the Lord his God, and is only a patriot to heaven. Delight is to him, whom all the waves of the billows of the seas of the boisterous mob can never shake from his sure keel of the ages, and eternal delight and deliciousness will be his, who coming to lay him down can say with his final breath, O Father, chiefly known to me by the role mortal or immortal, here I die. I have striven to be teen more than to these worlds or mine own. Yet this is nothing. I leave eternity to tea. But what is man that he should live out of the lifetime of his God? He said no more, but slowly waving a benediction, covered his face with his hand, and so remained kneeling till all the people had departed, and he has left alone in the place. Chapter 10. Returning to the Powder Inn from the chapel, I found Quiquet there quite alone. He having left the chapel before the benediction some time. He was sitting on a bench before the fire with his feet on the stove hearth, and in one hand was holding close up to his face that little negro idol of his, peering hard into his face, and with a jackknife gently whittling away at its nose, meanwhile humming to himself in his heathenish way. But being now interrupted, he put up the image, and pretty soon going to the table took up a large book there, and placing it on his lap began counting the pages with deliberate movement, looking vacantly around him, and giving utterance to a long drawn gurgling whistle of astonishment. He would then begin again at the next 50, seeming to commence at number one each time, as though he could not count more than 50, and it was only by such a large number of 50s being found together that his astonishment at the multitude of pages was excited. With much interest I sat watching him. Savage thought he was hideously marred about the face. At least to my taste his countenance yet had a something in it which was by no means disagreeable. You cannot hide the soul. Through all his unearthly tattooings, I thought I saw the traces of a simple, honest heart, and in his large, deep eyes, fiery, black and bold, there seemed tokens of a spirit that would dare 1,000 devils. And besides all this, there was a certain lofty bearing about the pagan, which even his uncountenance could not altogether maim. He looked like a man who had never cringed and never had a creditor, whether it was too that his head being shaved, his forehead was drawn out in freer and brighter relief, and looked more expensive than in otherwise would these I will not venture to decide, but certain it was his dad was phrenologically an excellent one. It may seem ridiculous, but it reminded me of General Washington's head as seen in the popular bust of him. It had the same long, regularly graded, retaining slope from above the brows, which were likewise very projecting like two long promoters, thickly wooded on the top. Quiquet was George Washington, cannibalistically developed. Whilst I was thus closely scanning him, half pretending meanwhile to be looking out at the storm from the casement, he never heeded my presence, never troubled himself with so much as a single glance, but appeared wholly occupied with counting the pages of the marvelous book. The night previous, and especially considered the affectionate arm I had found thrown over me upon waking in the morning. I thought this indifference of his very strange, but savages are strange beings. At times you do not know exactly how to take them. At first they are overweighing. Their calm self-collectedness of simplicity seems a Socratic wisdom. I had noticed also that Quiquet never consorted at all, or but very little with the other seamen in the inn. He made no advances whatever, appeared to have no desire to enlarge the circle of his acquaintances. All this struck me as mighty singular, yet upon second thoughts there was something almost sublime in it. Here was a man some 20,000 miles from home by the way of Cape Horn, that is, which was the only way he could get there, thrown among people as strange to him as though he were in the planet Jupiter, and yet he seemed entirely at his ease, preserving the utmost serenity, content with his own companionship. Chapter 11. We had lain thus in bed, chatting and napping at short intervals, and Quiquet now and then affectionately throwing his brown tattooed legs over mine, and then drawing them back. So entirely sociable and free and easy were we, when at last, by reason of our confabulations, what little nappishness remained in us altogether departed, and we felt like getting up again. That daybreak was yet some way down the future. Yes, we became very wakeful, so much so that our recumbent position began to grow wearisome, and by little and little we found ourselves sitting up. The close wall tugged around us, leaning against the headboard with our four knees drawn up close together, and our two noses bending over them, as if our knee pants were warming pans. We felt very nice and snug, the more so nice it was so chilly out of the doors. Indeed, out of the bed close to, seeing because truly to enjoy bodily warmth, some small part of you must be cold, for there is no quality in this world that is not what is merely by contrast. Nothing exists in itself. If you flatter yourself that you are all over comfortable and have been so a long time, then you cannot be said to be comfortable anymore. But if, like Quiquet and me in the bed, the tip of your nose or the crown of your head be slightly chilled, why then indeed in general consciousness you feel most delightfully and unmistakable warm. For this reason, a sleeping apartment should never be furnished with a fire, which is one of the luxurious discomforts of the rich. For the height of this sort of deliciousness is to have nothing but the blanket between you and your snugness, and the cold of the outer air. Then there you lie like the one warm spark in the heart of an Arctic crystal. We had been sitting in this crouching manner for some time, when all at once I thought I would open my eyes, for when between sheets, whether by day or by night, and whether asleep or awake, I have a way of always keeping my eyes shut, and in order the more to concentrate the snugness of being in bed, because no man can ever feel his own identity aright except his eyes be closed, as if darkness were indeed the proper element of our essence, thought like be more congenial to our clay part. Upon opening my eyes then, and coming out of my own pleasant and self-created darkness into the imposed and coarse outer gloom of the unilluminated 12 o'clock at night, I experienced a disagreeable revulsion. Nor did I at all object to the hint from Quiquet that perhaps it were best to strike a light, seeing that we were so wide awake, and besides a felt strong desire to have a few quiet puffs from his tomahawk. Be it said that thought I had felt such a strong repugnance to his smoking in the bed, The night before, yes, see how elastic our stiff prejudices grow when loved ones come to bend them. For now, I like nothing better than to have Quicket smoking by me ever in bed, because he seemed to be full of such serene household joy then. I no more felt unduly concerned for the landlord policy of insurance. I was only alive to the condensed, confidential comfortableness of sharing a pipe and a blanket with our real friend. With our shaggy jackets drawn about our shoulders, we now passed the tomahawk from one to the other, till slowly there grew over us a blue hanging tester of smoke, illuminated by the flame of the new lit lamp. Whether it was that this undulating tester rolled the savage away to far distant scenes, I know not, but he now spoke of his native island, and eager to hear his history, I begged him to go on and tell it. He gladly complied. That at the time I comprehend not a few of his words, yet subsequent discourse, when I had become more familiar with his broken phraseology, now enable me to present the whole story such as it may prove in the mere skeleton I give. Chapter 12. Biographical. Quicket was a native of Kokoboko, an island far away to the west and south. It is not down in any map, true places never are. When a new hatchet savage running wild about his native woodlands in a grass cloud, followed by the nibbling goats, as if it were a green sapling, even then in Quicket's ambitious soul lurked a strong desire to see something more of Christendom than a specimen waller or two. His father was a high chief, a king, his uncle a high priest, and on the maternal side he boasted aunts who were the wives of unquarrable warriors. There was an excellent blood in his vein, royal stuff, thus slightly vitiated, I fear, by the cannibal propensity but he nourished in his untutored youth. A Sag Harbor ship visited by his father's day in Quicket's south, a passage to Christian lands, but the ship, having her full complement of seamen, spurned his suit, and not all the kin his father's influence could prevail. But Quicket bow and bow along in his canoe, he paddled off to a distant strait which he knew the ship must pass through when she quitted the island. On one side was a coral reef, on the other a low tongue of land covered with mangrove thickets that grew out into the water, hiding his canoe still afloat among these thickets. With its prow seaward, he sat down in the stern paddle long in hand, and when the ship was gliding by like a flash he darted out, ran in her side with one backward dash of his foot, capsized and sank his canoe clean up the chains, and throwing himself at full length upon the deck, grappled a ringbolt there, and swore not to be let it go. The hacked in pieces. In vain the captain threatened to throw him overboard, suspended a cutlass over his naked wrist. Quicket was the son of a king, and Quicket budged not. Struck by his desperate dauntlessness and his wild desire to visit Christendom, the captain at last relented and told him he might make himself a. But this fine young savage sea prince of Wales never saw the captain's cabin. They put him down among the sailors and made a whaleman of him. But like Tsar Peter, content to toil in shipyards of foreign seas, Quicket disdained to not seeming ignominy if terribly he might happily gain the power of enlightening his untutored countrymen. For at bottom, so he told me, he was actuated by a profound desire to learn among the Christians the arts whereby to make his people still happier than they were, and more than that, still better than they were. But alas, the practices of whalemen soon convinced him that even Christians could be both miserable and wicked, infinitely more so than all his father's heathens. Arrived at last in Old Sag Harbor, and seeing what the sailors did there, and then going on to Nantucket and seeing how they spent their wages in that place also, poor Quicket gave it up for lost. Thought he, it's a wicked world in all meridians. I'll die a pagan. And thus an old idolater